Well, hello. Welcome to a new episode. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the word YOM and a number and how they're used in the Torah. Because I want to be honest about the word YOM and how YOM is used with a number. Because I believe in the adage, do the work. And I remember I was in conversation with someone, just talking about young earth creationism, as I'm not a young earth creationism or an old earth creationism. And this person told me that in every single one of the over 400 instances in the Torah where Moses uses yom with a quantifying number and or the scriptures evening and morning, he conveyed a normal day. And so I wanted to check this out for myself. So I went through and I found every passage in the Torah that uses yom and a number. And after sifting through hundreds of general uses of yom, I found that there was about 60 verses that uses yom and a number. So I'm not sure where we got the idea of 400. I found that the scriptures use ordinal numbers and they use normal numbers. This is used in relationship to manna, collection of manna. It talks several times about the Sabbath, and it also talks some in the Old Testament law. It uses a lot of these in the Old Testament law. So after this exhaustive search, trying to do the work, here is what I found out. Let's learn together. Genesis 1:5. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening, and there was morning the first day. Genesis 1:8. God called the expanse sky. There was evening, and there was morning a second day. Genesis 1:13. There was evening, and there was morning a third day. Genesis 1:19. There was evening, and there was morning a fourth day. Genesis 1:23. There was evening, and there was morning a fifth day. Genesis 1:31. God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. There was evening, and there was morning a sixth day. Genesis 2:2. On the seventh day, God finished his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Genesis 2:3. God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because he rested in it from all his work of creation, which he had done. Genesis 7:4. In 7 days I will cause it to rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. I will destroy every living thing that I have made from the surface of the ground. Genesis 7:12. It rained on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Genesis 7:17. The flood was 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and lifted up the ship, and it was lifted up above the earth. Genesis 8:6. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ship which he had made. Genesis 22:4. On the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place far off. Genesis 31:22. Laban was told on the third day that Jacob had fled. Genesis 40:20. On the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. Genesis 53. 40 days were used for him, for that is how many the days it takes to embalm. The Egyptians wept for Israel for 70 days. Exodus 16:5. It shall come to pass on the sixth day that they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Exodus 16:22. On the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. Exodus 16:26. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath. In it there shall be none. Exodus 16:30. So the people rested on the seventh day. Exodus 21. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to Yahweh your God. You shall not do any work in it, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your livestock, nor your stranger who is within your gates. Exodus 20:11. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Exodus 24:18. Moses entered into the middle of the cloud and went up on the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Exodus 31:15. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day it is the Sabbath of solemn rest, holy to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall surely be put to death. Exodus 31:17. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days God made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. Leviticus 7:17. But what remains of the meat of the sacrifice on the third day shall be burned with fire. Leviticus 8:35. You shall stay at the door of the tent of meeting day and night 7 days, and keep Yahweh's command, that you don't die, for so I am commanded. Leviticus 12:3. In the eighth day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Leviticus 12:4. She shall continue in the blood of purification 33 days. She shall not touch any holy thing, nor come into the sanctuary, until the days of her purifying are completed. Leviticus 13:5. The priest shall examine him on the seventh day. Behold, if in his eyes the plague is arrested, and the plague hasn't spread in the skin, then the priest shall isolate him for 7 more days. Leviticus 14:9. It shall be on the seventh day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows. He shall shave off all his hair. He shall wash his clothes, and he shall bathe his body in water. Then he shall be clean. Leviticus 14:10. On the eighth day he shall take 2 male lambs without defect, 1 ewe lamb a year old without defect, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a meal offering, mixed with oil, and 1 log of oil. Leviticus 23:27. However, on the 10th day of this seventh month is the Day of Atonement. It shall be a holy convocation to you. You shall afflict yourselves, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. Numbers 1:18. They assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their ancestry by their families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, one by one. Numbers 20:29. When all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they wept for Aaron 30 days, even all the house of Israel. Deuteronomy 9:11. It came to pass at the end of 40 days and 40 nights that Yahweh gave me the 2 stone tablets, even the tablets of the covenant. Deuteronomy 16:3. You shall eat no leavened bread with it. You shall eat unleavened bread with it 7 days, even the bread of affliction. For you came out of the land of Egypt in haste, that you may remember the day when you came out of the land of Egypt, all the days of your life. Deuteronomy 34:8. The children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days, until the days of weeping in the mourning for Moses was ended. So, what did I learn from the use of YOM with a number? Well, I tried to do this in categories where it uses these things. Like, for instance, in Exodus 16, it's talking about the manna. And so it says, like in verse 5, it shall come to pass on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in. And in 22, on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread. In verse 26, 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day is the Sabbath. And so in verse 30, it says, so the people rested on the 7th day. So it's all related and pointing to the Sabbath. But again, these are real people. They're giving a direction to a real person, the 6th day. That couldn't mean 6,000 years or 6 million years. So all I got from this is that in this particular use, it has to be a normal day. So are we supposed to connect this directly to Genesis, which isn't talking to an actual person and telling them to do something? I felt kind of confused by that. And then it talks a number of times about the Sabbath. So again, back to Exodus 16, 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day is the Sabbath. So the people rested on the 7th day. And then in Exodus 20:10, it says this, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to Yahweh your God. You shall not do any work in it. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your livestock, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. And this was repeated in Exodus 31. So if I went down to Exodus 31:5. 6 days work shall be done, but on the 7th day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, holy to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall surely be put to death. And in verse 17, it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. So I found this pretty good passage to show possibly a young earth creationist model, because it says in 6 days. Now, I've heard young earth creationists add 6 normal days. That's not what the scripture says. It just says, for in 6 days, Yahweh made heaven and earth. So again, these 6 days is using Yom. So it could mean a longer period of time. It could mean, on 6 literal 24-hour days. So I'm going to do a video about that a little later. Is this a convincing argument? I found that to be very interesting. And then it uses a number of things using first, second, third, or ordinal numbers. Like in Numbers 118, they assembled all the congregation together on the 1st day of the 2nd month. So obviously, this is the usage here. The 1st day of the 2nd month. They don't mean the first millennium of the 2 billion years. But again, I'm left with, so you're going to compare this to Genesis? Why would you do that? These are real days and real months. And in Genesis 40:20, on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday. So again, the third day is a real day, and there's a pharaoh, a person who has a birthday then. So obviously this has to be a 24-hour day. And Leviticus 7:7. But what remains of the meat of the sacrifice on the third day? Again, the meat doesn't last for thousands of years. Clearly, this is talking about a 24-hour day. Leviticus 13:5. More about the law, the Jewish law. The priest shall examine him on the seventh day. And then in 14:9, it shall be on the seventh day that he shall shave all of his hair off of his head and his beard and his eyebrows. So again, these are obviously literal days. And so I'm left with that. Like, okay, so these were literal days, but they're talking to literal people, a person. Why are we connecting this to Genesis, which is not talking to a real person? Very likely talking about events that could be millions or billions of years old. I didn't get the connection. Yeah, there's a lot of times they talked about YOM as a real 24-hour days. Why connect the two? And it just continued more like this. It started using normal numbers. Exodus 24:18, Moses entered into the middle of the cloud and went up on the mountain. And Moses went on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So the same pattern here. It just keeps talking about an actual literal day. Like Numbers 20:29. When all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they wept for Aaron 30 days. So pretty clearly, it's a normal 24-hour days. I didn't get the connection. These are very clearly 24-hour days, but every one of them is talking about an event that's happening right that moment and telling people to do things, in that moment or within a few days, not even a few years, a few days. But okay, when you can't directly compare this to Genesis, which is talking about something quite different, not talking about people, not talking about, telling somebody to do something right now. I honestly didn't get this connection. This seems to be a worse argument than before. So, and again, I still think that the arguments I used before are still valid. Like, remember the first one, that no writer would actually write this way, kind of reverse engineering. Should we throw out every lesser used words? How can we ever write something unique? Genesis was written first. Who did Genesis copy? This is the time to use this word in a long time period kind of way. Is the word of God just a word search? Are we going to do this with all common words like door and path and light? And the Bible was written by many authors, not only one. So again, they wrote to different people under different circumstances with different levels of education. The writings were in different genres, like historical narratives and straightforward history and poetry. And so I ask that question again. Do we really expect the Bible to use all words the same everywhere? And I didn't find it in this passage. And so, sorry, I didn't. I'm not trying to be hard on young earth creationism, but this just didn't seem to be an argument at all. You know, do we really expect the Bible to use all words the same everywhere? And I say the words that I found where YOM was used with a number is used for real people in that moment or in a week or so to do certain exact things. This has nothing to do with how it's used in Genesis, which may have been a 24-hour day. It's possible, but it's also possible that these things could have taken amount of time. Young earth creationism might still be true, so I'm still open and learning. Let's keep learning together.